What's up? My name is Casey Budge. This is the Fake Crime Podcast, a true crime podcast from your favorite fandom, and I'm here with my amazing co-host,
Hey y'all, I'm Kate.
and we are going to be bringing you the continuation of our Tom Riddle true crime episode. This is a two-parter because Lord Voldy has done a multitude of evil stuff, and he is just an all-around evil guy.
How can
And
we put all the evil into one episode?
exactly, I mean, they couldn't even fit the third shortest book into one part.
Exactly.
Into one movie. How are we expected to fit all of his misdeeds into one podcast episode? We're not. So we did it in two, and I do not regret that. So, Kate, do you want to give us the quick recap of
Yeah,
where we left off?
yeah. So here we go with part two. In part one, we talked about um, all of Lord Voldy's parents and how he kind of became to be evil. And we talked about a little bit about Harry's birth and his parents and how they died, and kind of just jumped right in. We left off about when Harry's parents died. So we are ready to jump into part two um, at that point.
Yeah, yeah, that was perfect. Voldemort is basically a ghost. He should have been killed by the backfiring spell off of Casey, or off of not Casey. But if you haven't seen little Casey dressed up as Harry, you need to go check it out on our Instagram at the Fake Crime Podcast. It's probably the most adorable picture of me you'll ever see, except for the picture of Kate and I when we were flower girl and ring bearer at my aunt's wedding. But that's a whole different thing.
That's a whole nother story. But
Yeah,
seriously, if you have not seen the picture yet, go check out the Instagram. It's adorable.
it's really cute. My like I said, mom made me that scarf and like those robes and everything, and it's phenomenal. Uh, but yeah, so little Harry did not get killed by the killing curse, which is the first time in history that that's happened. The spell backfired onto Voldemort. Should have killed him, but thanks to all of his Horcruxes and all of his dark magic that he was a part of, he was able to survive. And he is basically a ghost, and that's kind of where uh, the world is left for like 11 years while Harry is uh, growing up um, with the Dursleys. Is Voldemort is kind of a ghost. He's in possessing the bodies of snakes. He's just trying to get by. But these snakes, when he possesses them, don't live for very long. So he's kind of having to bounce between body to body, and that's not really getting him anywhere. And he can't perform any magic either, which is the other problem. So he can't create himself a body. He can't really do anything else. He's just kind of stuck in this spirit vapor form. And also, he doesn't want to get found by Dumbledore because he's worried that Dumbledore will try and capture him or something like that. Which I'm not really sure how he would have. I mean, he's like a ghost. So like, what's Dumbledore gonna do? I really don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure Dumbledore knows some old ancient. He'd probably like put him in a jar, keep him on the
Yeah.
shelf.
Yeah, he would. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Creepy.
yeah.
Keep him in his living room for sure.
Yeah, yeah, like in an urn. Oh, what's in that jar, Dumbledore? Oh, that's for sure, the Lord Voldemort. I scooped him into a jar.
Don't open it.
Do you want a cookie?
Wrong jar.
Oh, Dumbledore. um, so, uh, that tickled my funny bone.
So, speaking of urns and dead people and dead parents, back to Harry. He is living with his aunt and uncle. Is that correct?
Yes, and this is the part that's always been interesting to me because we don't really ever explore like James's parents in here. And I believe in like some of the extra canon material, we find out that they were also dead at this point, which is unfortunate because like uh, James was pretty young when when he had Harry. Like he wasn't a super old parent,
Hmm.
and so Harry to have not only his parents be dead, but also his grandparents, and most likely his mom's grandparents are dead too, because like there's never mention of him going and living with them, and seemingly they would have been accepting of Harry because they loved Lily, and Lily
Right.
was a this mudblood wizard, this uh, Muggle-born wizard, so um, she would have had obviously she or her parents were more accepting of the wizard kind. She didn't grow up where they were like hateful of her or anything like that. In fact, it talks about later on that they loved her and that they accepted her and that they were so proud about it.
Sure.
So Harry in this time is growing up and he's under this like repressive circumstances, uh, and he's just beaten down. He doesn't really have any opportunities to express his magic because he's growing up in the Muggle world, and that's part of Dumbledore's plan. But this isn't really Harry's story. This is Voldemort's story. We're telling the story of
This is our true crime podcast. We're
yeah
not talking about the about
yeah
Harry here.
yeah. Um, he uh he's an important character later. So we'll kind of circle back to him. But Voldemort is obsessed with him. That's another thing about Harry is that Voldemort has all this time, and the last thing that he remembers when he had a body was trying to kill Harry and it not working. And there are
Hmm.
also theories that Voldemort went to Harry's house to make his seventh and final Horcrux, and that failed. So Voldemort only has six Horcruxes now, and he also ended up dying. So like it was a double whammy of not having good stuff happen.
Right.
But Voldemort's luck is actually about to change because into this Scottish forest would wander the cowardly, stuttering Professor Quell, and and uh, and he would, by some means, be convinced to allow Voldemort to attach himself to the back of his head, and by drinking unicorn blood, he is able to live as the back of Quirrell's head, basically, and live a half life. And so he's basically stuck to the back of Quirrell's head. And in this instance, I think it's different in the books, but he ends up going to the Leaky Cauldron, and he, uh, with the intent to get into uh, Diagon or Diagon Alley, and he knows that the Philosopher's Stone is kept in Gringotts, and he knows what vault it's in through his connections and everything. He has figured this out, and so his intent is to steal the Philosopher's Stone and get a more permanent and better source of life than unicorn blood. So he wouldn't have to live this half life. He wouldn't have to do any of this other stuff. He would be able to become a full mortal again and go back to reigning terror.
Right. And if you're unfamiliar with Voldemort, look up this picture of him attached to the back of somebody else's head because it's a really, really creepy image to imagine, but it's even creepier how they display it in the movies where he's wrapped in a towel to hide one face at a time.
Yeah. So also one of the cool parts is that uh, when it's a little bit different in the books and the movies, but in the Leaky Cauldron, Professor Quirrell shakes Harry's hand in the book, but in the or one or the other, he doesn't shake his hand in one medium or the other, and I think the difference is that in the book, I think he does shake his hand, and then later he won't touch Harry
Mm.
because like he won't shake his hand or he'll flinch away from him because that protection that Harry's mom gave him actually is would burn Voldemort to a crisp if he came into contact with Harry. So Quirrell doesn't want to come into contact with Harry. And so uh, later that day, Quirrell and Lord Voldemort attempt to break into Gringotts. They do successfully break into Gringotts and go to the vault where uh, the Philosopher's Stone is being kept. And they break in, they successfully get in, but there is nothing in that vault. Bum, bum, bum. Because it's been emptied earlier that very day by Hagrid. So Hagrid, on Dumbledore's orders, uh, had taken the Philosopher's Stone out and brought it to Hogwarts with him, and while he was delivering Harry to uh, the platform 9 3/4 and getting him all ready. And it's different in the movies and the books, because in the books Harry actually has to go back and live with the Dursleys for like another week in the middle there. So like there's this funny week where like they're all scared of Harry, and like they won't they like can't like be around him. And there's also this weird part where like they drop him off and he's like, well, do you know where platform 9 3/4 is? And they're like, ha ha, platform 9 3/4 doesn't exist. And then they drive off.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, they're terrible people. But
They're the worst.
yeah, maybe we should do an episode about them.
They're the real villains here.
The real villains. An episode about them and Umbridge.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep,
Not so much serial killers, but they really are the villains of
they really
Harry's
are the
childhood.
villains. And Dumbledore for sending Harry back to live with the Dursleys every year.
Right, right.
I mean, he has a reason for doing that later, but like, still.
Still, summer boarding could have been available. Come on now.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. You could have just lived with Ron. Ron's parents would have taken you in.
Yeah, seriously. But anyway.
Anyway.
But besides the point, we're not talking about Harry. So, he, Lord Voldemort, in another attempt to steal the Philosopher's Stone, goes to school on the back of Quirrell. And throughout the year, he has to drink more unicorn blood to be able to stay alive. So he has to kill several unicorns that live in the woods, and this leads to Hagrid kind of catching wind that someone is drinking unicorn blood. And this leads to a number of things, but one of the things that it leads to is Harry actually coming face to face with Lord Voldemort for the first time. And he just appears as this cloaked, hooded figure because he is living this half-life, and he has to exist basically as the back of a head to Quirrell. So he comes face to face with Harry again, and this time they don't really end up fighting, but it's a tense moment for Harry and Voldemort. And so Quirrell / Voldemort continue out the year, and they end up finding out how to get past the first of several obstacles that Dumbledore has set up, because Dumbledore, knowing that Voldemort will try and get past all of these obstacles, he has set up a number of things to keep him away from the stone. So Fluffy, the three-headed dog, the devil's snare, the what else is there? There's a chessboard, there's a troll that Quirrell puts there, and there's a potion challenge that Snape comes up with. And so there are all these things, but the first thing is one of the most difficult, which is the three-headed dog. And so through means of trickery, Quirrell tricks Hagrid into giving him the information how to get past Fluffy. He basically gives him a dragon egg in exchange for the information, but not really. He doesn't like he doesn't directly ask for the information. He tricks Hagrid into giving the information while playing cards with him and losing a dragon egg to him in a bet. So it's this very like it's showing once again that Lord Voldemort is this very cunning and very manipulative person who is able to come across very charming and very nice if he wants to, but he just doesn't most of the time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he makes several attempts to get past all these obstacles, and the first attempt is, or one of the first attempts is on Halloween when he releases a troll into the castle and um and runs into the main hall and faints and fake faints and says, "Oh, there's a troll in the dungeon," but there isn't a troll in the dungeon. It's like on the third floor or whatever. So he's trying to send the teachers on this wild goose chase looking for this troll while
Right.
he goes and sneaks past all the obstacles. But
Right.
at this point, he hasn't tricked Hagrid yet, so he doesn't know how to get past the dog. And Snape comes and intercepts him and doesn't let him get past. So Snape this whole time is trying to keep him from even getting into the area where the stone is kept. And so later on in the year, Quirrell is at a Quidditch match because he's still having to act like Quirrell. He's still
Right.
has to keep up appearances and go to Quidditch games and do all sorts of things. So he, uh, and there's another really funny thing here in a little bit, but he sees a golden opportunity to take out this rival of his, Harry, without directly doing harm to him or directly touching him, and that is to jinx his broom into bucking him off.
Hmm.
So
Make it look like an accident.
exactly. So he performs this jinx on Harry's broom, and it almost works. It almost gets him bucked off, but Snape is right there performing the counter curse this whole time, and so Snape is actually able to keep Harry alive, even though his broom is trying to buck him off. But Quirrell notices and is mad about it, and he ends up not being able to kill Harry in this instance, but Snape is a little bit more on his tail after this.
Mhm.
And
And
so,
does Snape suspect that this is Tom at this point in the story?
no. So Snape just
Okay.
thinks that it's Quirrell trying to get the stone for himself. And in fact, Dumbledore even suspects that Quirrell is trying to get it for himself. We find out later.
Hmm.
So Voldemort at this point uh, is desperate to try and get the stone. So he waits until Dumbledore leaves the castle, and he knows how to get past Fluffy. So he breaks in. He gets past the Devil's Snare. He easily knocks the troll out. He gets past the chess set and Snape's po- potion challenge, but he's met with one final obstacle that he wasn't expecting, and that is that Dumbledore has enchanted the Mirror of Erised, which is Erised is desire backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the mirror does is it shows you your greatest desire.
Ah.
Yeah. So anyway, fun fact. Um, but
Fun fact, race car backwards is still race car,
race
but
car is
desire
still
backwards is not.
is Erised. Um, So Voldemort is he can't figure out why he can't get this stone from the mirror. He pictures himself holding it, but part of the enchantment is that only someone who wants the stone but doesn't want to use it can get it from the mirror.
Mm.
So when Harry shows up later, because Harry's been onto him this whole time, Harry's been following him and watching him, but he thought it was Snape the whole time. So there was this whole red herring about Harry thinking that Snape was the one who was trying to steal the stone. Uh,
Right.
but it turns out it was Quirrell and Voldemort this whole time. And so Quirrell uh, places Harry in front of the mirror, and Harry lies about putting the stone, or about seeing something else in the mirror that he doesn't actually see. But
Mm.
he does see himself holding the stone and putting it in his pocket, and he actually feels it. So Harry does get the stone in his pocket, and being a accomplished legilimens, which is basically a human lie detector, uh, Voldemort is able to tell that Harry is lying about
Mm.
this. And so he basically goes over and tries to choke Harry, but in his rage and his anger, he forgets that touching Harry will turn him to stone. So he flies over and grabs Harry by the neck, but basically his hand like starts to turn to dust and stone, and then Harry reaches up and he touches his face, and the fake or Quirrell and Voldemort melt to stone, and so Voldemort is once again just a ghost. He's nothing more at this point, and so
Mm.
Harry is able to escape his first year. And the other funny thing is that at one point during the year, Fred and George bewitch snowballs to hit Quirrell's turban on the back of his head with snowballs. So Fred and George were unknowingly pelting Voldemort with snowballs at some point in the year, which is hilarious.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's one
Yes.
of the details that
Yes.
you would never notice on your first viewing, but it's excellent in retrospect.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Voldemort is reduced back to a ghost, back to nothing else, and really his story doesn't continue until 2 years later. But I'm gonna give a brief synopsis of the 2 years in the middle there because it helps
Right.
to define what goes on. So previously in the last episode, we talked about how Voldemort was the heir of Slytherin and how he opened the Chamber of Secrets.
Mhm.
Well, one of his Horcruxes that he made was designed not only to be a Horcrux, but also to open the Chamber of Secrets. So basically, the this object, which was his diary, was
Mhm.
designed to open. Was to If you give it to some unsuspecting person, it will convince them to open the Chamber of Secrets, and then it will kill the basilisk within. Will kill several Muggleborns and purge the school, and so it'll be great. Uh, and so Lucius was instructed to hold on to the diary, but not do anything with it. Lucius Malfoy was one of Voldemort's many Death Eaters who was able to slip through the cracks of justice after
Mhm.
his terror and everything, because he convinced everyone that he was under the Imperius Curse. So Lucius gives the diary to one of his rivals, Arthur Weasley's daughter, and
Mhm.
she is, through the power of the diary, basically over a school year, over the next school year, she is forced to open the Chamber of Secrets, and the basilisk within attacks several students, but it doesn't kill any of them. It just petrifies several of them, so they're basically turned to stone for the year. And but Harry is able to defeat the basilisk with the help of Gryffindor's sword, and so and in the process, the diary, which was one of Voldemort's Horcruxes, is destroyed.
Mm.
And so the
So
next,
now he's down to five.
yes, now he is down to five, because I don't think that he made Nagini Horcrux until after he came back from the dead, but I'm not
Mhm.
100% sure about that. Um, so uh, yeah, so he's down to five at this point, and which actually six, because we'll get into that in a minute. But Harry, um, the next year after the Chamber of Secrets year, not really a lot happens for Voldemort except for one of his agents, Peter Pettigrew, who you'll remember is the one who betrayed the Potters to Voldemort.
Right.
He uh, has been hiding as a rat this whole time, and he basically framed Sirius Black for betraying the Potters, which Sirius Black was one of the other friends of James Potter, and
Mm.
uh, Peter Pettigrew framed Sirius for betraying the Potters and killing some Muggles. So Peter did those crimes, but he's been hiding as a rat this whole time, and
It's a
not
great thing that Voldemort didn't eat him while he was a snake.
it really
That would have been
is.
bad.
He almost did probably, um, but uh, Peter has not only been hiding out as any rat, but as the rat of the best friend of Harry Potter, the someone who has been very close to Harry through this whole time. He's been hiding out as Ron Weasley's rat. Bum bum bum. And through the chain of events that is the third year at school, his faithful servant Peter Pettigrew comes back to him. And so this is where Voldemort's story kind of continues. Is Peter Pettigrew had heard rumors that Lord Voldemort had been in these Scottish forests, these Albanian forests, and so he heads up there trying to find him, and he bumps into Bertha Jorkins, who is a ministry employee, and he bewitches her and basically brings her to Voldemort too, and they end up formulating this plan to get Voldemort his body back, and in the meantime, he Wormtail is able to get him like this creepy baby body back, like it's really weird and gross, but like he basically is like a little baby, a little ugly baby.
Ooh,
And
gross.
it's really gross. So, also to feed him, they milk the snake,
Oh,
right?
do
That's
snakes produce
I
milk?
don't know, but this is a magical snake, so maybe.
I don't think it's a mammal, so
I
I'm
don't
not
think
really
that
sure about that.
yeah, but it's a magical snake, Kate. You have to
Casey's
remember.
gonna learn about that in vet school and
Yes,
share that
yeah,
information with you.
I'm going to have to milk a snake at some point in vet school.
Lab number 1.
Lab 1, snake lactation.
Well, if it's similar to a platypus, it may sweat.
Oh,
Who knows?
oh man. Don't even get me started on platypi. I could talk for 45 minutes just about the cool things about platypi, about platy people.
Okay, well, let's go back to Voldemort and his baby shape-shifting and how he is drinking milk.
Yeah. So, through this process, he finds out that one of his other most faithful Death Eaters is not only not in Azkaban, like he thought, and not dead like he thought, but he is actually out in the world and under the Imperius Curse by his own father. So Barty Crouch was the head of the Auror department when Voldemort was first in power. And he was very strict, he was very harsh. He was the one who sent Sirius Black, Harry's godfather and James Potter's friend, to Azkaban without a trial. So not only did he do that, but he also sent his own son to Azkaban, and his son was brought in connection with the torture and eventual drive to insanity of Neville Longbottom, one of Harry's good friend's parents. So he was involved in driving them to insanity, along with Bellatrix Lestrange, Sirius Black's cousin.
Right.
Yeah. So, he was supposed to be in Azkaban, and later on, they buried a body that looked just like Barty Crouch Jr., but really, it was not him. It was his Barty Crouch Jr.'s mom, who had drank Polyjuice Potion, and they had buried her while she still looked like Barty Crouch Jr.
Oh my.
It's a wild story, right?
Wild. Yes.
Yeah. So Barty Crouch Senior had come up with this whole plan because his wife was terminally ill, and she wanted her son to be out of Azkaban. So basically, she came up with this whole plan to get her son home, and so he ends up under the Imperious curse, living under an invisibility cloak, and at home. But Bertha Jorkins, the ministry employee who they kidnapped earlier, she
Right.
worked for Barty Crouch Sr., and she had overheard uh, them talking at some point, or she had overheard them at some point and figured out that Barty Crouch Jr. was alive. So through torture or looking into her memory, Voldemort was able to figure out that he was still alive. So he goes to Barty Crouch Sr.'s house and puts Barty Crouch Sr. under the Imperious curse and frees his loyal Death Eater, Barty Crouch Jr.
Hmm.
And so Barty Crouch Jr. also agrees to a plan that is a little bonkers in the midst of it, but he is convinced to go to Mad Eye Moody, who is a Auror, which is a dark wizard hunter. He is convinced to
Right.
go to his house, overpower him, stuff him in his own trunk, and drink polyjuice and become him for an entire year in order to get close to Harry and in order to orchestrate the Triwizard Tournament, which has been coming up, into Harry winning it, and not only Harry winning it, but transforming the port key or the trophy for the Triwizard Tournament into a port key, so that Harry will touch it and get transported to a graveyard, wherein they can use Harry's blood to as one of the ingredients to bring Voldemort back to his original body and his and his original self. So you're giving me this look.
I'm giving you this look because you warned me that was going to be bonkers.
Yeah.
And now I'm dying to know, does this work? Do they accomplish all of these goals?
Well, buckle up because yes. like through pure happenstance and nonsense. Not only does Barty Crouch Jr. successfully take down one of the most highly decorated Aurors of all time, he is also able to overpower him and impersonate him well enough that he fools one of his oldest friends, Albus Dumbledore. But he is also able to uh, when his father escapes captivity in the middle of this whole plan, he is able to sneak away, kill him, transfigure him into a bone, and bury him on the grounds of Hogwarts.
Oh my.
Yeah, and all this while Voldemort is kind of in the background, like lurking around. But
Right.
um,
It sounds like Voldemort is just really being lazy here because this was like a 17 part plan, and I don't feel like he was very helpful.
well, he is like a gross little baby at this point. So like,
Fair enough.
what's what's a gross little baby gonna do?
He's a platypus. He doesn't do much.
He's a platypus. He doesn't do much.
Okay.
Okay,
So
okay, and
he
that's enough
he
about
gets
that.
Harry
This is
Potter transported to this graveyard.
yeah. So not only does he get a fourth wizard who is not of the correct age into the Triwizard Tournament, so he adds he bewitches a magical object that is an unbewitchable. He bewitches it to add a fourth student to a three-student contest. Not only
It's
that, but
called the Tri-Wizard Tournament.
not this year. It's the Quad Wizard Tournament. Don't be
Okay.
silly.
Okay. We can just go ahead and rename it.
But
That's
they
fine.
don't. That's the whole thing. Is that they don't. The whole year they still call it the Triwizard Tournament.
Well, we
So
can't
weird.
actually rename it. We've already ordered the trophy.
We've the nameplates are already engraved. It's not
It's
like
on the banners and the
it's not like we're
calendar.
wizards and we can magically re-engrave these.
Don't be ridiculous.
It's not like at the end of the first movie we magically changed all of the direct decorations and robbed Slytherin of their 17th house cup in a row. Just with a flick of a wand. We can't change the name. It's already on the Evites.
Yes.
You think you
Yes.
could just change an Evite?
No.
Crazy.
I can just I can just see Dumbledore making a little Canva Evite, picking out the template with the spooky little spider webs. Okay, we're
Snape!
off topic. Off topic now.
Snape, what do you think of this template? Do you do
I'll
do
share it with you.
do you think this is a good font for the Triwizard Tournament Evites?
Is this inappropriate? Should I use Time New Roman?
I don't really, I'm gonna use what's the silliest font you could think of, Severus?
This is ridiculous. Okay, back to Harry Potter.
So Voldemort's 17-part plan actually comes to fruition, and he is able to get Harry into the graveyard by him winning this tournament that by all rights he shouldn't have been even entered in. And Harry, along with Cedric Diggory, is transported to this graveyard, and through and he commands Cedric Diggory to be killed right on the spot. So Cedric Diggory, one of Harry's friends, and one of the top students of Hogwarts, the Hogwarts champion, and co-Triwizard champion tournament winner, Cedric Diggory, is killed. And they also use they're also able to capture Harry, and in his shock, they take some of his blood and use it to reanimate Voldemort and give him a new body without a nose, though. They go through this whole magic ritual, and his new body doesn't even have a nose.
Well, neither do snakes, I guess.
That's true, and he does have like the vertical pupil thing that
Yeah.
snakes have going on too. So like it's fitting.
Yeah.
Snakes taste with their tongue,
Interesting.
or smell with their tongue. They're like just like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish you guys could see that visual because it was very similar to a snake.
Yes.
Yeah, you missed out.
Yes. It's very snake-like. I'm a snake.
Okay, so after he comes back to his body.
After he comes back to his body, he basically goes around and he talks about how none of his Death Eaters looked for him over the years, and all of them acted like they never worked for him, and he's mad at all of them, and he's like, okay, well, all of you have been terrible servants to me, and so for the like 15 years that you didn't do anything for me, you owe me 15 more years of service. And like he once again shows this ability to be incredibly charming and incredibly persuasive and very smart.
Mm-hmm.
And so he basically, like, best case scenario here, he kills Harry and no one knows that he's back. Everyone like believes that Harry is either like killed in the maze or something like that, or something else happened to him. But like nobody knows that he's back for a while.
Sure. Yeah.
Or like he sends someone back in Polyjuice Potion, or he just comes back. But like this is kind of like Harry. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Harry, he challenges Harry to a duel at the end of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And through a fun fact that I didn't mention before, which is that Harry and Voldemort both have phoenix feather cores in their wand. And not only any phoenix feather core, but Fox Phoenix, which is Dumbledore's special pet. They both have feathers from this one specific phoenix. And that, when they duel, it creates this effect, which is priori incantatem, which is basically the reverse spell effect. So their spells collide, and it kind of creates this beam that runs together. And basically, Harry is able to, through his pure willpower and his intact soul, is able to force this bead into Voldemort's wand, and so it basically starts showing images that represent the last few spells that Voldemort's wand cast. And Wormtail killed Cedric with Voldemort's wand. So first Cedric's ghost kind of appears, and then Bertha Jorkins' ghost kind of appears because they end up killing her. And then Harry's parents appear.
Hmm.
And I think like the groundskeeper to the old Riddle mansion also appears too.
Sure.
But all these ghosts of all these people that Voldemort killed show up, and they basically help Harry escape. And Harry is able to bring Cedric's body back to the Hogwarts grounds, and he is able to escape, and he is able to warn Dumbledore right away that Voldemort's back, and that is the worst case scenario for Voldemort, is to for the most important people to know that he is back. So like the Minister of Magic is there, and Dumbledore is there, and like in Voldemort's mind, he's like, oh man, this is terrible. But lucky for him, the Minister of Magic is an idiot. So basically, what goes on is that the Minister of Magic doesn't believe Harry. He thinks that Harry is just making up stories to garner attention and garner more fame. And he basically tells Dumbledore, well, you're trying to seize power from me, and I don't think that Voldemort's really back. I think that you and Harry are making this up, and I'm not going to believe you, and I'm not going to do anything about it. But Dumbledore...
Which is ridiculous, because, like, these are the two most trustworthy people you know, and why would they lie about this?
Yeah. But, you know, people in power want only to keep power, and they'll do crazy things to keep it.
Right.
And so Dumbledore, in this moment, he suggests taking Azkaban away from the Dementors. He suggests going to the Giants and forming relationships with them. He suggests doing this whole range of things that probably would have kept Voldemort from getting such a strong hold, but instead of doing that, Fudge ignores him, and he decides to just kind of sit on his hands and wait. And in the meantime, also starts running a smear campaign on Harry and Dumbledore. Yeah. Do you need to go to dinner?
No, I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I've got another, like, 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, from now on, a lot of what we know is as great as what we don't know, because we kind of find out this information from the tales of Harry Potter and from the tales of Dumbledore. So we don't know all of what Voldemort was doing in this time, but over the next year, he goes about basically recruiting new people to his cause. He goes about trying to gain new weapons and allies. He sends envoys to the Giants, and he orchestrates the escape of a bunch, I think 5 of his Death Eaters from Azkaban. So 5 of his most trusted Death Eaters are back with him, and he is also very interested in the prophecy that was originally told to him, and the prophecy that was why he went after Harry in the first place.
Right.
So this prophecy said that the one who would defeat him was coming. But unfortunately for him, Snape at the time only heard part of the prophecy. So he is very interested in this prophecy. So he is trying any means to get to it. And one of the things that he discovers through his attempts to get it is that only the people who the prophecy was made about can retrieve it. So he has to trick Harry into going and getting it, because he still wants to remain in the shadows. Because at this point, he has a huge advantage in that the whole wizarding world doesn't know that he is there. that he is
Right.
back, because the Ministry of Magic is actively covering up, like they're doing his job for him. They're
Right.
uh, like not telling people. They're actively like shutting down the people who are trying to tell people. So uh, through their connection, which Harry at this point figures out that him and Voldemort share a mental connection through
Hmm.
somehow. They don't really know how. Neither of them know how at this point. They figure out that they have this mental connection, and Voldemort figures this out at the same time. And so he starts subtly influencing Harry and sending him these suggestive dreams about this door in the Ministry of Magic. And
Again, being super manipulative.
he's so sneaky, so smart about how he does everything. He sends Harry these dreams and he tantalizes him, and he like shows him these little snippets uh of what's in there and exactly how to get to the prophecy, exactly how to do it. And when the time's right, when Harry is like basically driven insane by these dreams that he's been giving him, he shows Harry an image of Harry's father figure. Because
Mm.
earlier in the year, Sirius Black's house elf creature had been given an order to go away. And because of the magic of house elves, he wasn't allowed to leave the house before this.
Right.
But when he is, he goes away to the only other family that he has, which is Bellatrix Lestrange, because Bellatrix and Sirius are cousins, right?
Sure.
So
Hmm.
Bellatrix's maiden name was Black. So
Hmm.
Creature still has to serve Bellatrix too.
Right.
So he goes to Bellatrix and he uh, tells her everything about Harry, because Harry spent a lot of time at Sirius's house over the summer,
Hmm.
and he tells them that Sirius is really important to Harry, and that Sirius may be a way to lure Harry to the Ministry. So Voldemort uses this, and he shows Harry an image of himself torturing Sirius at the Ministry, and he shows that he's going to kill him if Harry doesn't go there soon.
Oh, wow.
So uh, he basically convinces Harry psychologically that he needs to go to the Ministry, and he convinces Creature to lie for him and tell Harry when Harry tries to reach out to the house where Sirius lives. He convinces
Hmm.
Creature to not harm the uh, Buckbeak the Hippogriff, and create a
Hmm.
distraction so Sirius isn't around, but also to lie to Harry and tell him, oh, yeah, Sirius is at the Ministry, and I'll be able to go back to my other mistress soon, and all this stuff in order to further that manipulation and that lying and get Harry to go to the Ministry of Magic.
Right.
And so Voldemort uses all this big combination of things to get Harry to go to the Ministry and go and retrieve his prophecy, because he showed that he was torturing Sirius right by where the prophecy was.
Hmm.
And so Harry, hook, line, and sinker, falls for it, and he goes to the Ministry. He retrieves his prophecy, and right then, all of the Death Eaters that Voldemort broke out of Azkaban earlier in the year converge on Harry and his little friend group.
Oh, wow.
And so they all show up, and unfortunately for them, because of some other extenuating circumstances, and one of the other greatest villains in Harry Potter history, they had been practicing defensive magic all year on their own, and they had all become very good at defensive magic, being part of Dumbledore's army.
Right.
So they are actually able to hold off these Death Eaters. These school kids are able to hold off these Death Eaters and are able to uh, fight their way kind of into this area and get away from them for a little while. But unfortunately, they do eventually they're outmatched, and they're kind of all held up when the Order of the Phoenix, which is Dumbledore's group, uh,
Right.
we talked about it a little bit in the last episode, but Dumbledore's
Hmm.
group kind of opposing Voldemort. They show up and they kind of help to save the day, but in the process, Sirius Black is actually killed. But the prophecy is destroyed. So Voldemort never hears the last part of the prophecy. So he never hears that either. He basically never hears the part about how either Harry has to kill Voldemort or Voldemort has to kill Harry, and so
Right.
but Voldemort has already set in motion a lot of this prophecy, but he never hears the part about how uh, basically like Voldemort obsessing over Harry leads to Harry winning,
Right.
and and so Voldemort is obsessed with this prophecy, uh, but it breaks. He never hears it, and Bellatrix Lestrange, Sirius's cousin, is the one who kills Harry. And so after killing Harry, she starts running, and she runs away from the main group of the Order of the Phoenix and the other Death Eaters. And Harry kind of traps her and is off on his own, and he's fighting her, dueling her when Lord Voldemort shows up.
Right.
And uh, and luckily for Harry, Dumbledore shows up at the same time too. So Voldemort and Dumbledore have this epic duel, and it's said that Voldemort, that Dumbledore was the only person that Voldemort ever feared, and Dumbledore shows why here because Dumbledore basically mops the floor with him. I mean, he is absolutely like Voldemort's a very good wizard, but Dumbledore is just that tick above.
Unmatchable. Right.
Yeah, yeah, for reasons that we'll talk about later. All right, and we're gonna end it there because I have so much more to say about Lord Voldemort, and I felt like a longer episode than we already had was going to make it hard to listen to all in one sit down. So we're gonna do a third part all about Voldemort, covering the last two books, and then we will go ahead and do kind of a synopsis and talk about all the crimes that Voldemort committed and everything else. So thank you so much for listening. This has been the Fake Crime Podcast. You can find us at Instagram, on Facebook, on X, on Threads, wherever else, at the Fake Crime Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please leave a rating wherever you're listening.